Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The alarm barked twice, then flatlined into a long threat. I slammed the red button and pulled the mask up. Air hit hot, then thin, then nothing steady. Footsteps rushed closer. I held the rails. How long? I'm Mara, 22, and I know the taste of panic. Lena swept in and raised the bed with quick moves. Her eyes checked mine. I forced a nod. She tightened the strap and mouthed with me, could I? Numbers jumped. The waveform dipped like a bad joke. 2 slow breaths, she said, palm firm on my shoulder. I obeyed. Ribs ached, vision narrowed. The room shrank to plastic and pulse. What if it stays there? The door opened hard. Pavel entered with a tablet. He didn't smile. He set the trial form down. Decision time, he said, voice steady and close. I watched the pen. My hand didn't move yet. A cough ripped through and bent me forward. Lena steadied my back. Pavel watched the screen. The mask fogged fast. I cleared it with a thumb. Now or never, he said. Was that true? I signed the first line, crooked, shaky mine. Pen tapped twice. My fingers cramped and eased. He marked the timer and nodded once. Prep starts now, my chest answered with a stubborn grind. Lena laid the syringe kit and checked my band. No chatter, just rhythm, tight and efficient. I locked eyes with her and blinked once. She blinked back. Count us in. Did we have this? The needle bit sharp, clean, then heat spread quick. I tasted copper and winter and swallowed hard. The monitor chimed a tight, cautious climb. I gripped the rail until my knuckles warned. Dad slid in against the door and froze. No coat shake, no questions. He saw the needle. His jaw eased when I lifted my hand. He moved to the foot of the bed, waiting. Breaths with me, Lena said, eyes not leaving mine. We inhaled slow, held, pushed out on 4. Air moved like a rusted hinge finding groove. I felt a gap open, thin, real, stay open. Pavel adjusted the rate and checked the chart. Watch for the break, he said, not looking up. I braced for the next cough and let it come. It tore loose and left space. Was that the break? My phone buzzed once on the tray. I reached, missed, tried again and caught it. 3 words typed out fast, no emoji. Still in this, the screen flashed red receipts. The room quieted to machine breath, heartbeat. No speeches, no heroics, only small forward steps. I counted 5 clean inhales before the stutter. The 6th held longer than the last, hold longer. The line beeped fast, pressure spiked, my lungs stalled mid-count. Lena tightened the strap and angled my chin forward. Air scratched through like grit and dared me to stop. I pushed a longer inhale and waited for the dip. Pavel checked the timer and raised a brow. Dose 2, he said, voice low and close. If numbers dive, we escalate ventilation. He held my gaze. I nodded once, save the big guns, give me 1 more minute. A tremor rolled through my arms and shook the pen. Not fear, chemical surge, unwelcome but useful. I let it ride and kept breathing with her rhythm. The spike eased a notch, thin window, could it widen? Dad stood near the footboard with shoulders squared. You want this course? He asked without moving closer. I want a chance, I answered through the mask edge. He tapped his ring against metal, 1 beat, deal sealed. Lena flushed the line and watched for a flashback. Pins and needles coming, she warned with a quick shrug. They arrived like ants marching up bone, annoying yet alive. Good sensation meant flow, no clot today. The next cough came brutal and stubborn and wet. I leaned forward and braced with both forearms. Something shifted, deep, sticky seal breaking under pressure. Air slid past the snag, narrow lane, do not close. Pavel leaned toward the screen without blinking once. Hold 3 breaths, he instructed while marking the interval. Then small sips, no hero moves, he waited. I held 3 clean draws, released slow, then tested control. Footsteps stopped at the doorway, clipboard raised like a shield. Pharmacy needs confirmation of randomization, the woman said. Pavel didn't turn, confirmed, active arm, go. She hurried off, boots clicking like the decision might evaporate. I felt heat climb my neck and stall behind ears. Nausea pricked sharp but stayed at the edge. Lena grabbed a basin and parked it within reach. I waved it away, not yet, fight the wave. Dad's phone lit up on the tray with silent buzz. He flipped it face down and met my eyes. I watched his throat work and settle into calm. The room shrank to our small team, keep the formation. A rash flared along my forearm like pepper thrown wide. Lena pressed cool gauze and studied my pulse. Pavel raised a hand, wait, no panic until proof. The itch plateaued and faded to a dull reminder. The clock hit the next checkpoint with a long tone. Step increase, Pavel said and adjusted the pump rate. My chest resisted and then accepted the push. I counted 5 measured draws and brace. D for the 6th. It hit hard pressure under the sternum, teeth clenched. I exhaled through pursed lips and sank into tempo. The spike flattened to a hum and stayed there. Pavel finally looked at me and gave a brief nod. Walk test later if this holds, he added without flourish. Lena lifted a brow like a dare I might accept. My legs ached from doing nothing yet promised movement. I pictured the hallway as a finish line with teeth. The pump clicked steady, reliable like tires gripping wet road. I tracked each note and matched breath to machinery. Dad exhaled with me and steadied his stance. We rode the rhythm together and waited for the next turn. The floor met my feet, knees wobbled, monitor screamed for attention. Lena clipped a portable line and wrapped a belt around me. Pavel lifted the tubing clear of the wheels with one hand. 3 steps, he counted, palm up like a referee. I shifted my weight forward and felt the drop coming. The first stride held barely, then a sharp hitch folded my chest. I caught the rail and rode the wave until it eased. Reset, Lena murmured, fingers steady on my elbow. We waited 10 beats and tried again, shorter reach this time. The numbers steadied enough to gamble on a hallway. Dad moved ahead and cleared a pass with a look. No speeches, just a nod that dared me to follow. I pushed off the bed and dragged the pump behind. The corridor stretched like a dare with teeth. I took another step and hunted for air that worked. Halfway to the line on the floor, the rhythm unraveled. A cough tore through and threatened to fold me in two. I bent at the waist and kept eyes on the tiles. Sips, Pavel reminded, hand hovering near the stop switch. I sipped small and found a groove that might hold. An orderly blocked us with a clipboard raised like a gate. Transport needs the unit in 5, he announced without apology. We need 4, Lena shot back, shoulders squared for a standoff. Pavel glanced at the screen and lifted 2 fingers. 2 minutes, walk or quit, pick a side now. I chose forward, tiny strides, heel then toe, no heroics. The belt cut into my ribs and focused my mind. Dad matched my pace and breath like a metronome. The machine beeped faster and warned of a cliff. I kept moving because stopping would end the test. The cliff arrived anyway, saturation plunged, knees buckled hard. Lena locked the belt and braced my hips from behind. Pavel opened the valve a notch and watched for recoil. Air pushed in and met resistance like packed snow. I pushed back with everything that still listened. Pressure equalized just enough to stand without swaying. Pavel checked his watch and gave a quick nod. Turn around on my count, he ordered with zero softness. We pivoted as one unit and faced the long return. My legs burned like I had borrowed them from someone older. At the door, the orderly hovered with a not-so-patient sigh. 2 more lengths, Lena said, chin lifted in warning. He stepped aside with a shrug that dared me to fail. I set a new rhythm and refused to look at numbers. Each step wrote a small promise I would pay later. The pump clicked twice and threw a new sensation through me. Heat flooded my neck and settled behind my ears. Nausea rose fast and threatened to flip the table. Lena slid a basin within reach and waited without blinking. I swallowed hard and chose to keep it down. My phone buzzed once in my gown pocket like a dare. Dad reached and passed it to my palm without comment. A message from the group blinked on the lock screen. Walk that hall, then tell us. I tucked it away and aimed for the doorway. We crossed the taped line with the monitor still protesting. Pavel raised a brow and wrote something I could not see. Again after labs, he said, tone final as a gavel. Lena eased me back onto the mattress with controlled speed. My lungs rattled once and then settled like grudging gears. A tech rolled in with a tray and tightened a band. Arterial poke, she warned, eyes on my wrist. The needle found its mark and fire raced up my forearm. I gripped the sheet and counted 5 heartbeats on instinct. Blood filled the syringe and time stretched thin. Gas results in 10, the tech promised as she backed out. Pavel nodded at the door like a chess move landed. Lena loosened the belt and checked the line for kinks. Dad handed me water and watched me win that swallow. We all waited for numbers that could flip the board. I lay still and tested a slow inhale without coaching. It held longer than before and surprised me with space. Pavel watched my chest and chose not to smile. Lena folded the strap and set it within reach. We pretended not to listen for footsteps that meant verdict. The door hit the stopper and the tech held up a slip. Results are back, she announced, eyes flicking to my line. Pavel scanned the sheet without moving his feet. Borderline improvement, he concluded, tone neutral, options open. Next step is imaging. My lungs tightened before we moved. Lena unclipped the belt and rolled the pump beside me. We keep you on support during transport, she added briskly. I shifted upright and tested a small breath alone. It held thin but obedient like a skittish animal. We pushed out into the corridor and met traffic. An orderly angled the stretcher toward the elevators without warning. Lena shot him a look that could cut steel. Slow, she warned, hand on my shoulder for balance. The pump bumped a wheel and jolted my chest. Air stuttered and my vision spotted at the edges. Pavel matched pace and watched the graph in silence. If pressure dips, we switch mask settings, he reminded me. I nodded once and anchored my tongue behind teeth. Dad walked on my left and counted under his breath. I clung to that count because it kept me forward. The elevator swallowed us and lurched before settling. My chest tightened again and the mask hissed unevenly. Lena adjusted the seal and tapped my wrist twice. 2 deep draws, then 3 shallow, she coached with focus. I followed, hit the third, and felt resistance fight back. The doors didn't open at the first floor we expected. Hold, the orderly muttered, thumb on the panel like a prayer. The air inside thickened with recycled breath and fear. Pavel glanced at the pump and opened the valves slightly. A surge of flow met me head-on and demanded compliance. I pushed into the flow and rode it past the snag. The elevator chimed and finally opened to a quiet hall. Lena wheeled me out and reset the pace to human. Dad exhaled and pressed his palm to the rail. We moved again because stopping would invite another corner. Radiology waited with guarded impatience and a checklist. Contrast ready, the tech announced, eyes on my arm. Pavel nodded and signed the line without ceremony. Allergic history, the tech asked, pen frozen near the box. No reactions noted, Lena answered, gaze steady, pulse measured. The IV warmed my vein and sent a quick burn up. I gritted my teeth and counted 8 before release. The scanner frame hovered close like a dare I disliked. Hold breath when instructed, came through the speaker comm. I waited for the command and wondered if I could. Breathe in and hold, the voice instructed in precise beats. I gathered air, locked it, and stared at a fixed point. Chest throbbed with each heartbeat, trying to break the hold. Exhale, the voice allowed, and relief felt like a bargain. We repeated the cycle while sweat collected at my hairline. Midway through, coughing ambushed me hard and fast. I rolled to the side and fought not to rip hardware. Lena slid a basin to my chin and braced my shoulder. The spasm passed and left a space I wanted to trust. Pavel nodded once and signaled for one final pass. The machine stopped and the table slid me out. Images uploading, the tech said, tapping a screen twice. We waited in a bubble where eye contact meant everything. Dad squeezed my fingers and released before it became pleading. My chest settled into a calmer pattern that felt earned. Pavel's tablet chimed and his eyebrows shifted by a millimeter. Micro 8 lactases improving, no embolus, he reported with spare words. Trial continues with adjusted support and walk again later. Relief cut through me so clean I almost laughed. Instead, I nodded because I still needed to buy the next hour. On the way back, the elevator stalled for 2 beats. I focused on Lena's steady breathing and copied it exactly. The doors opened and the corridor stretched less like a sentence. Pavel walked ahead and held the unit cables clear. We rolled faster because the window we had might narrow. Back in the room, I pulled a careful breath alone. It stayed where I placed it and didn't break. Lena checked the line and set the belt within reach. Pavel adjusted the rate by a small, deliberate notch. Dad rested his forearms on the footboard and didn't speak. Next target is standing without wobble, Lena announced, chin lifted. Short attempt now, longer try after fluids. I swung my legs over the edge and waited for spinning. The room held steady while my knees argued. I rose 3 inches and froze, hold it, do not blink. I settled back and felt heat creep up my neck. Not shame, not quite victory, something between that sharpened me. Pavel wrote a note and clicked the tablet off. Good response, he allowed, still guarding the word progress. We test stairs tomorrow if this trajectory survives the night. Up now, Lena slid a hand under my elbow. Pavel pointed at the stairwell like a judge. My knees unlocked and argued with gravity. We moved before doubt caught up, first tread waiting. The first step landed clean, the second buckled. I gripped the rail and forced air through tight spaces. Short stride, Pavel warned, palm hovering near my ribs. I reset my feet and looked up, 14 more. A porter pushed a cart across our path wit. How it looking? Dad stepped wide and blocked it with his shoulder. The wheel squealed and stopped an inch from my line. I kept climbing because stopping would erase nerve. Halfway up, a cramp stabbed beneath the sternum. Lena counted low and steady, fingers against my pulse. Match this, she coached, eyes daring me to sink. I matched, the spasm eased, and another riser waited. A cough tried to fold me and failed. I leaned forward and let it rip free. Something loosened deep and stayed loose for once. Pavel watched the graph and didn't call a halt. Another team barged into the landing with a stretcher. Clear the turn, one barked, not bothering to check faces. Lena held up her badge like a stop sign. We squeezed by shoulder to shoulder, one misstep, big fall. On the ninth step, my legs shook hard. Dad shifted below me, ready to catch without words. Two more to the landing, Lena said, chin raised. I pushed past the tremor and felt space open. We hit the platform and paused for a count. Pavel checked a small screen and flicked his finger right. Advance, he decided almost under his breath. I chose forward because retreat would break me. The air tasted metallic and sharp and honest. I hated it and trusted it in the same beat. Sweat crawled into my eyes and forced a blink. Focus center, Lena whispered, don't chase symptoms. At step 12, an alarm wailed from a distant bay. Everything tightened in me like a spooked animal. Pavel didn't flinch, he stayed on my numbers. Ignore it, he said, your hill, my hill. Step 13 hit like a wall, then gave. I lifted, planted, and held my ground. The line tugged behind me, unkind but loyal. Dad blew out a breath and reset his stance. The final step felt like a coin flip. I put weight down and committed with both feet. For a heartbeat, I floated between collapse and balance. Balance won barely, my toes curled to keep it. At the top landing, a clerk waited with a folder. Consent for provisional listing, she announced, eyes on me. Pavel's head turned a fraction, permission without speeches. I reached for the pen because waiting cost air. My hand shook and steadied on the second stroke. Lena braced my wrist with two fingers, quiet and firm. Dad's jaw worked, then settled into something like pride. I signed the line and felt my chest unlock. The clerk snapped the folder shut and stepped aside. Committee meets at 1600, she added, already backing away. Pavel's look sharpened, new window, strict clock. Down we go, Lena said, controlled descent, no showboating. The trip down burned different muscles and new fear. Every riser asked if I still meant it. Eyes on the next, Dad murmured like a prayer. I obeyed because looking back would pull me under. On the ground floor, a resident waved us toward a room. Bed free for observation, he offered, cheeks flushed. Pavel accepted with a nod and a brief hand swing. We rolled in as my breath flattened to gravel. Hold here, Lena ordered and lifted the mask a notch. Fresh flow surged and smoothed the jagged edges. I rode it until my shoulders dropped on their own. Pavel tapped his watch, stared, data log, decision, runway starts. A transplant coordinator appeared at the threshold like weather. Insurance preclearance pinged, she reported, voice fast and clipped. Need verbal to move paperwork before committee. Dad looked at me, not a question, only trust. Authorize, I managed, and the coordinator sprinted. Pavel lowered the rate one click and watched me adapt. No crash, no spike, just a steady, uneasy truce. Lena rolled her shoulders and reset the strap against my collarbone. Walk again at 1400, she warned, no victory laps. I lay back and tested a slow inhale uncoached. It held longer than the last and didn't wobble. Behind my ribs, something like resolve settled in. I wasn't safe, I was ready for the next demand. The pager on Lena's hip erupted, she froze, then hit speaker. Potential organ inbound, the coordinator announced with clipped breath. Crossmatch now, committee moved you to active. My chest tightened for a new reason I could use. Do it, I said, already bracing for needles. Pavel was at the doorway before the echo faded. Time is thin, he warned with a short nod. Type and screen, viral panel, antibody check. Lena tourniqueted my arm with practiced speed and focus. I watched the vial fill and dared hope to be practical. Dad gripped the rail and squeezed once like a pact. He didn't ask for odds or promises this time. Call your people, I told him through measured breaths. He lifted his phone and walked to the window. I listened to silence between his words and felt steadier. The lab runner snatched the samples and sprinted down the hall. Pavel adjusted support settings by one notch and paused. You hold your own air, he said without ceremony. I hold if you falter, he met my stare. I inhaled slow and felt the scaff. Fold, hold under pressure. The coordinator returned with 2 folders and urgency. Donor lungs clean, distance manageable, cross-match negative prelim. Surgeon wants you prepped within the hour. I swallowed a stone that might have been fear. Prep me, I answered because turning back would gut me. Consent sheets hit the tray with deliberate taps. I initialed boxes while Lena checked access and meds. Pavel called the anesthesiologist and cut through their hedging. Her metrics justify the attempt, he said with calm force. I signed the final line and looked at my hands. Transport arrived with a stretcher and tension. We roll now, the lead said, chin set like steel. Lena clipped my support rig to the portable unit. Dad fell in beside the wheels and kept pace. The corridor seemed shorter than yesterday and somehow louder. The elevator stopped 1 floor early and refused to move. We waited 3 beats that felt like a test. Stairs, the lead offered without apology or doubt. Pavel shook his head once and keyed the service panel. The car jerked alive and plunged toward the theater. Pre-op hung with focused noise that sharpened choices. The anesthesiologist checked my mouth opening and warned gently. Induction will hit fast, you may feel heat. I met her eyes and anchored myself to breath. One request, I said, tell me when it starts. Count from 5 when I ask, she answered, firm and kind. Lena tightened the strap across my shoulder and winked. You walked stairs, she reminded me, like armor. We finish what you started, her palm settled on mine. I held that contact as if it mattered more than oxygen. Pavel leaned close and spoke in a voice meant for me. You did the work that got us here. No heroics, just honest effort now. He wasn't smiling, he was present. I found enough breath to say thank you without breaking. The coordinator slipped in with one more hurdle. Legal needs verbal for recipient registry upload. Dad looked at me and nodded once in trust. Authorize upload, I said, throat tight and clear. She tapped her tablet and exhaled like a starter pistol. The ore doors opened and swallowed our small convoy. Bright light hit and forced my eyes to recalibrate. I felt the cold pad under my back like a warning. The anesthesiologist hovered with syringes ready for war. Deep breath on my mark, she said, steady and close. 5, she counted, and I filled my chest on cue. 4, and heat moved through my veins with intent. 3, and the room narrowed to faces I trusted. 2, and Lena's hand squeezed my fingers without fear. 1, and the world tilted like a cliff I would climb. Darkness didn't drop like a trap, it drifted on purpose. I heard the first incision words through cotton and grit. Then nothing held shape except a single thought. Hold on to the chance you demanded with your feet. I let go because surrender was the work now. I woke to ice in my throat and pressure everywhere. Lena's eyes found mine and softened by degrees. Vent for now, she mouthed, pointing to the tubing. Thumbs up if pain is contained. I lifted my thumb and watched relief cross her face. Pavel appeared like a verdict and checked the graph. Graph's pinking, pressures acceptable, bleeding controlled. He studied my chest rise and fall with a scientist's calm. Then he leaned in where I could see only him. You're through the door, stay with us while we guard it. Hours staggered by in chopped pieces of sensation. I rode the ventilator rhythm like a borrowed drum. Dad emerged at the edge of the curtain with wet eyes. He didn't speak, he lifted 2 fingers and held them up. 2 lungs, 2 chances, keep both. They tested me with small trials meant to break me. Weaning breaths, cough assist, posture changes that burned. I did each one and waited for the crash. It didn't come, a smaller ache replaced the crushing weight. I took that trade and saved my questions for later. The tube left my throat in a single brutal second. Air moved under my own control for the first time. Not perfect, not quiet, mine. Lena offered water in measured sips I earned. It tasted like victory disguised as tap. Pavel hovered with measured pride in a list. Risks remain, he reminded, because honesty was policy. Infection, rejection, clots, we win by being boring. I snorted a laugh that turned into a cough. Teach me boring, I rasped, I am ready to study. Physical therapy arrived with a chair and determination. Stand today, walk tomorrow, stairs next, the therapist said. I swung my legs over the side and waited for spinning. It didn't come, my feet found the floor like old friends. We rose together while machines watched every move. The first upright breath after surgery felt illegal and good. I held it and counted to 8 without panic. The therapist grinned like a coach with a sure win. We shuffled 3 steps and parked for a rest. I did not cry, I filed tea. He feeling for later. Night crept in and brought new alarms built from caution. Nurses checked lines and whispered codes that sounded safe. Dad slept in a chair with his chin on his chest. I lay awake and tracked each inhale like a bead. Tomorrow would ask for more, I could meet it. Morning rounds hit with brisk orders and guarded optimism. Remove arterial line, Pavel directed with a small nod. Advanced diet, start immunosuppression per protocol. Words that once scared me turned into milestones to chase. I chased them because standing still had almost ended me. By afternoon, they dared me with a longer loop. We left the room and turned that first corner. The hall did not stretch like a punishment anymore. It felt like ground that belonged to both of us. I touched the wall and kept moving past it. Back in bed, I opened my phone and typed. New update, I wrote, fingers steady and sure. Not cured, not done, breathing with borrowed parts and stubborn will. Choosing the next hour on purpose. I hovered over post and heard my heartbeat answer. I pressed send and watched the screen blink acknowledgement. A flood of messages arrived faster than I could read. Lena peeked at the display and rolled her eyes fondly. Internet loves a cliffhanger, she teased with a crooked smile. I smiled back because living is the best twist. Pavel returned with a smaller grin that almost escaped him. Biopsy schedule set, clinic follow-up in 2 weeks. Walk again at dusk, he added like a promise. Dad stretched and reached for my hand without words. We sat there and let the quiet prove itself. I closed my eyes and breathed in 4 clean counts. No stutter, no claw, just the work of staying. It felt heavier than fear and lighter than denial. I would carry it because it carried me back. The hour turned over and I leaned into the next.